everybody. Welcome to Idio Talk, a Radiohead podcast. I am Walker Glenn.
I'm Zach Glenn.
Nice to see you, brother. How you doing today?
I'm doing really good. I was just thinking that at some point in the future, and my time is limited, I want to, after you introduce yourself and it's my turn, I just want to go...
Wait, your time is limited? Do you mean like in the way that all of our time is limited? Or do you mean, are you trying to tell me something? Do you have McGregor's?
No. Yes,
please tell me it's
4.
not stage 1.
It's not.
Okay, because at that point, all we can do is make you comfortable.
That's why I'm extra giggly and dumb today. I'm just going to let you know. Stage 4 has some weird, wacky side effects, Walker. Stage 1, you look like you're enjoying yourself a lot. We'll just say Stage 4, you get a little wacky. No, I more meant that, Radiohead canon, we're running a little bit low on. You're the master of kind of keeping things under wraps as much as they need to be. So that's as far as I'll go. But there might be more Radiohead adjacent, or who knows, maybe they'll come out with another album. So, my time might not be limited on this podcast.
Well, even though we are out of Radiohead studio material, and, obviously we're still covering The Smile, which I was giving some thought to, like, do I introduce this one as like, welcome to Idio Talk, a Smile podcast? But no. It's still the Radiohead podcast.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure you saw, and I'm guessing you probably saw it independently of me sending it to you, but Jonny Greenwood has announced a new collaborative project with, and I am afraid I do not know the gentleman's name, but an Israeli musician who is open for Radiohead, who opened for them on the Moonshaped Pool tour, I believe. And I mean, I don't think there's any other details forthcoming, but I know that this is an experimental musician, so I'm guessing this is probably instrumental music, but I think that we will probably be in season 2 when that sees the light of day. But I mean when Jonny Greenwood puts out something new, we got to cover it. And the Smile are in the studio. Yeah, there's going to be more of that to cover. And yeah, you sound like me though, being like, maybe Radiohead will release another album. I feel like my naive optimism, or what some would call denial, has started to rub off on you.
I mean, perhaps it has. But listeners presumably will have listened to our episode covering The Smile's debut album, A Light for Attracting Attention. So they should know by now that I think we both gave it very, very A+ among A+. And I mean, I was just ecstatic to talk about it and to listen to it. So I don't need Radiohead that much.
Yeah, no, I think we were both very enthusiastic about The Smile. I mean, what I think is kind of cool is I think that there has been very, very high enthusiasm, appreciation, and like kind of emotional resonance for both of us on the last couple non-Radiohead projects that we covered. And I'm specifically talking about A Light for Attracting Attention and Anima. And I gotta say, as kind of, I feel like maybe as the curmudgeon of the two of us on this show, not that you have spared criticism for the things that haven't spoke to you as much, but I just sometimes feel like my attachment to Radiohead and that lineup and that name, right? Because that was one thing I realized, and I think even talked about in The Smiles. It was just like, I love this so much, and yet I still kind of have to put it in a slightly different box when I talk about it, just because it's not called Radiohead.
Yeah,
right?
Today's modern box. You got to put it in.
I got to put it in today's modern box. So I've been very relieved to love the last couple things as much as I do, because some of our listener feedback has had a tenor, or at least maybe this is just how I've read it, but of like, God damn, do you guys like do you guys even like these guys? which I gotta say, no, I don't like these guys. I love them.
Nice, well put. I just love so much what you said, that the last couple of things we've covered, which have in fact been non-Radiohead, albums, and I was going to say artistic statements, but they're albums, but they are artistic statements, aren't they? And you could say that about all music, but I really do like Anima in particular, and A Light for Attracting Attention. Yeah, I just love how you said they had equal emotional resonance, or seemingly, for the both of us, as some of Radiohead's greatest work, and I just think that's so well put. I have not gotten the chance to see Radiohead live, and I am just so excited to have experienced, a portion of that, albeit from a different project, because Radiohead might be making another album, but they certainly don't seem to be touring anytime soon. Although I keep seeing weird rumors posted online, but they are just that. They are just rumors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that until they put an official nail in the coffin of Radiohead that we can give that up completely. I may have even used this example on another episode when we were talking about if Radiohead will be back or not. I keep thinking about Daft Punk, and that in 2021, after not putting out any new music since 2013, they were that they were we're broken up. Although they recently, one of the two members of Daft Punk released, I thought, a very eloquent statement about why they broke up. And
I had not seen that. I just saw the headline. No, would you please tell me?
Yes. First of all, his name is one I've only read and never said out loud. So and they're both French, so I don't know what the pronunciation is, but it's Thomas Bangalter, or it's spelled bang.
I want to say
later.
Mason.
Okay.
One of the two masked individuals.
Yeah, one of the two robots. Basically, the statement was kind of about. I don't know if he specifically referenced AI, but basically in how tech-oriented our world has become, and kind of how isolated humans are from each other and their own humanity. That and this part is close to a quote, if not the exact quote, was, in this day and age, a robot is the last thing I want to be. And I adore Daft Punk. And so that is definitely a concert experience that I'm really bummed to have never gotten. Even if what they're actually doing musically is pushing play, they really chop and screw the songs up. And I think my favorite album of theirs is their live record, Alive, where they mash up a bunch of their songs together. And I've just watched a lot of footage, and they put on an amazing visual, spectacular show. So I'm sad that there's no Daft Punk, but Thomas Bangalter, or however you say his name, has a new record that I will probably check out at some point. That is apparently very human and orchestral.
I love that.
That should be interesting to look at, and I'm sure that both of them, and I can't remember the other guy's name. I believe it's Guy something. But
Jean-Francois Champollion.
Gerard Depardieu, I believe, is the other member of
Depardieu.
Is that not how his name is said?
It's Depardieu.
Oh, well, see, this is not boding well for my best guess at pronunciating one of the robots' last names.
Now, Walker, I do have two quick Radiohead bits of just kind of general overview, current goings on. You've stated quite eloquently in the past that we try to keep the show pretty evergreen, so to speak, and not so current pop culture. But I do know that this episode will be released within the next couple of weeks. Do you know what I'm speaking to as far as the two other kind of Radiohead zeitgeisty things?
I don't think so. I lay it on me.
Well, you mentioned a Jonny Greenwood collaboration just a minute ago.
Yes. Yes.
Have you also not heard of the other collaboration he's made with olive oil?
Okay. Yes and no. I received a text from former guest of the show and current friend of the show and listener, Jesse Ribbler, that said, and this was the first and now and heretofore only that I have heard of this. I received a text that rather ominously said, "You must cover Jonny Greenwood's olive oil."
Oh, I love that. Okay.
But I love the use of the word must.
I love that former guest Jesse Ribbler wants us to cover that. Unfortunately, that is really the extent of my knowledge. You know, I've talked quite openly on the show about during Tomorrow's Modern Boxes, for instance. I was like, you know, I don't know how many new listeners are going to tune in, hopefully subscribe to Idio Talk just for this episode. But I want to be clear, new listeners, I love Radiohead. I love the solo work of Tom York. This is a one-off, so to speak. I feel just fine about the fact that I'm not intimately familiar with Jonny Greenwood's olive oil company 3 days after the story broke. So, I mean, if you've looked it up or anything, lay it on me, please.
No, please tell me about it. So why is he getting into the,
I don't know. No, I saw you typing. I don't have anything pulled up.
I mean, okay. So what I want to know is this like, I mean, celebrity endorsed companies, the first question I always have is just like, how much of this is just a famous person slapping their name on something and how much of it is passion and knowledge?
This is different. It seems to be that. It's not like, you know, first of all, olive oil, to my knowledge, isn't like gin. You know, we got George Clooney, who I love, who I think we both love. Ryan, who's the really hot Ryan from Canada? Ryan Reynolds. I think he's actually pretty active in like the whatever, you know, of his alcoholic beverage. We got Bryan Cranston, right?
Brian and Aaron Paul have their mezcal, yes.
They're in business together.
Yes, that's why.
That's great.
That's why I saw them both in Idaho. Listeners, just quick, I performed in the Treefort Festival as a comic not too long ago, and I walked into a restaurant to pick up a burger I ordered, and there were Walter White and Jesse Pinkman standing there taking photos with people and handing out shots of mezcal to patrons. And don't worry, one of the guys taking a picture with Aaron Paul did make sure to say "yo bitch" to him very forcefully.
That's so cool. I love that.
I know. It must be so great to have a catchphrase that, you know, that catches on with the culture that allows people to scream the word bitch at you all the time. Dave Chappelle seemed to love it, and I'm sure Aaron Paul loves it just as much.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Bryan Cranston probably like looked over at Aaron Paul and was like, "That's why I do a greater variety of work."
Solid impression.
Thank you. No. Anyways, to your question though, I genuinely have not done very much research beyond the couple Reddit posts I saw. And then I did, you know, Reddit, no offense. If you're listening to the show, you can be a great way to learn new information, but I do validate my sources elsewhere. And I think Jonny Greenwood has a passion for, one of the world's oldest ingredients, like up there with bread and shit. But like is not putting his name on it. Jonny Greenwood, God love him. I know that our ladies found at least his talent attractive, but he's not the kind of guy to be a Ryan Reynolds in a commercial or you know, and being like, buy my olive oil. It's more a passion for the process and the product.
That makes sense, right? There's not somebody going, you know, whose looks and charisma we need to place front and center is Radiohead / The Smile multi-instrumentalist and known monk level silent icon Jonny Greenwood. That is so interesting. Now, here's my question.
It makes sense.
I'm a little worried though. Do you think does Jonny Greenwood, maybe is he involved in some shady shit? And is this like when Vito Corleone started Genco imports? You know, with his front company was an olive oil company,
and an actual company. I know it was a front at that, but their olive oil was like good.
Oh,
right?
it was great olive oil. It was right from the right out of the mountains of Sicily.
Yeah, Sicily. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, I'm worried. I'm worried that like, is some sort of like tax evasion scheme happening?
No. I'm not worried, and I'll tell you why. So I think that this makes complete sense. So I don't know shit about how olive oil goes from where it derives its title, olives, and is made into oil, right? It's I'm sure it's something similar to wine, something, you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of processes.
I've seen the words cold pressed on bottles before.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't want it warm pressed. You want that cold press.
However, I'm sure that that the processes are mechanical, made up of simple machines, wheel, pulley, axle. We know Jonny Greenwood loves that shit. I'm sure it's process based. I'm sure there's a bit of chemistry to make sure that you got the balance of whatever, right? All things that seem to speak to my man. No, I'm not worried about it being a tax thing. I think that Jonny Greenwood is a man who loves to stay busy. And the only thing that makes me worry is, have you ever had one of those friends that you love and you're only uncertain if they like you back or love you to the same extent that you do because they overbook themselves? And then gradually over 10 years, you realize, I love this friend. I got to reset my expectations because they overbook themselves. It's not me, it's them.
Yes.
That's my only worry with Jonny is dude, you know, working with P.T. Anderson and who made Power of the Dog? I
forget the name of the woman who
she was amazing filmmaker. I can't wait to watch more of her work, you know, past or present. But the point is he's well sought after in terms of film collaboration.
We got a new musical project,
right? I mean, how, you know, God forbid that Tom should say, you know, hey Jonny, you want to hang out? And, yeah, I'm available at 3. 7 o'clock rolls around. Tom's just sitting on the front porch.
Sure. Anyways. I'm also worried about, okay, let's say, because right now he's
you know that friend though, right?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I dig what you're saying. I mean, because right now, so I agree with you that I think if Jonny Greenwood is producing olive oil, he's hands-on, right? The man loves an intricate process. So that means that
thank you.
While he is in the studio with the smile, he's also elbow deep in a vat of olive oil. And I'm worried that he's going to come into rehearsal after being in the factory all day. He's going to pick up his guitar or his bass guitar. The thing's going to go flying out of his hands.
We're going to see an infomercial pretty soon of like, do you come into the studio covered in olive oil?
Yeah, exactly. Because my man is lubricated.
I know.
So I don't know. I feel like it's like, you know, pick up a new project during like a sabbatical from one of your other projects, Jonny.
Well, rather than infuriate our listeners that I'm sure are experts in the Jonny Greenwood olive oil, then we'll just say this is a developing story. Okay. So this episode, from its time of release to when it was recorded, it's a very, very narrow span of time, days even, if you will. So we might pick that back up in a future episode. The other thing that happened over the weekend, Walker, that we would just be heartless if we didn't mention on mic is little Ed O'Brien had a birthday over the weekend. 55 years young.
55 years young. He can finally, well, I don't know what the retirement age is in England, but he can retire.
17.
Here's a grant. Yeah, so okay, that's beautiful. Ed O'Brien, 55 years young, as you said, looks fantastic.
Better than ever.
Yeah, distinguished gray, got the salt and pepper stubble going on. And that's happy birthday, Ed. We'd love to have you on the podcast. If you go back and listen, we loved Shangri-La.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
We love your shaker work. We love your atmospheres. And I got to say, I actually was having an Ed appreciation moment last night.
On Saturday. It's National Ed Appreciation Day.
It's National Ed Appreciation Day.
No, go ahead.
EOBEAD. As we call it.
Well, no, what was your appreciation?
Well, this is a little bit related to what we're talking about. So
sure.
we right up top discussed, is this still a Radiohead's podcast right now? Is it a Smile podcast? No, it's still a Radiohead podcast. But, as we've gone through Radiohead and as Radiohead and Radiohead adjacent music has preoccupied most of my listening attention over the course of this project, I have not gotten sick of Radiohead, but I have found that in my leisure time, I'm reaching for other things.
Totally, yeah.
Just reaching for things that are different. And as we kind of approach the end of their catalog, like right now, I'm all in on the Smile, right? Mm-hmm. This is our second Smile episode. If this was The Bachelor or Bachelor in Paradise, and there's all these different people coupling up, it's like, yeah, I had a really strong start with Radiohead. There was real chemistry there. But now I'm kind of looking at the Smile. And then we went on a date and we really connected and I'm all in, right? That's how I've been feeling as I've been like kind of pulling live songs and listening to a light for attracting attention. It's just like, hey, what I had with Radiohead was special, but I want to focus on the present and the future. And right now that's the Smile. Then last night, Zach, after being like, surely I'm not going to spend my free non-podcast time with Radiohead right now when I've done basically nothing but listen to Radiohead for the last goddamn year, right?
Uh-huh. Sure.
I find myself, I'm waiting for tip-off for the, again, not to be topical, but tip-off for Game 2 of the Kings Warriors playoff series. And I'm like, kill a little time here and get on the old YouTube. And what do I find myself typing in? But Radiohead from the Basement.
Ooh,
and I sit there, I watch Nude, I watch All I Need, and I watch Optimistic live from the basement.
Is this, but that could be 2008 or Scotch Mist.
This was 2008.
Tom's wearing the button up.
Yep.
Yeah, love that one. That one shot so incredibly well. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, nothing. But like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I'm all in with the Smile, but let me get on Facebook, see what the old ex is doing.
Right,
right. And man, do you? I'm almost wondering if Ed commissioned these to be like, people don't think I'm doing anything, because you really do see what Ed is up to. And you,
how much of it did you watch? No, that wasn't a setup. This is I
watched those 3 songs and then it was tip-off time. And
what about so in that From a Basement though, it is heavily in Rainbow's focus, but they do play Optimistic. Mm-hmm. Which is from Kid. What's the name of that album again?
Kid Atlas.
Kid Atlas, yeah. So Optimistic is from Kid Atlas,
and it's called Kid Atlas because of the mountains on the cover.
Right. And then they also play a personal favorite of mine, Where I End and You Begin, in that From a Basement, and that is to say, on both of those songs, I love that in 2008. It's obviously for a reason very in Rainbow's focus, but I love that they have those songs in. And Ed, especially on Where I End and You Begin, doing a lot of textures, moans, drones that would seem like they would be more ascribed to the Owens Martineau or Theremin. But no, very busy on that song in a very cool way is all. And there are not very many live performances or basement performances of that song. And it's really cool to see Tom's attack during that aggressive guitar part. But Ed is very, very busy on that song as well.
Very much so. And like on All I Need, like the main crux of the song. Well, it's built as much around the volume swells of Ed's guitar as it is what Jonny Greenwood is playing on the Rhodes. And one thing I had never noticed before is that he's playing a guitar modified to only have the 3 low strings.
Yes, but isn't Colin also doing the do in harmony?
Yes.
Okay, so they're all in harmony.
Yes, that's the thing. I mean, is just that there's no slouch in these sessions, but there's only one person in Radiohead who has ever been accused of being said slouch. And I'm just wondering if Ed was like, I'm going to need us to show people what we're doing live, and I'm going to need you to cut to me a lot because I'm hearing a lot of rumors out there that I don't do any. People saw me during our 3-guitar arrangement of I Might Be Wrong that is actually a 2-guitar arrangement. And
but it's actually a 1-guitar arrangement because Tom is on the tambourine.
Yes, right.
But there are other versions where, yes, they all three have guitars, and Tom, pretty busy.
Yeah, Tom's very busy. He's somehow playing guitar and tambourine at the same time. Ed is barely managing to bob his head in time with the music.
Yes.
But happy birthday, EOB. We love you.
Yeah. One last little Ed thing. Because we give Ed a hard time, or we have given him a hard time. It is a miracle that he's agreed to be a guest. Oops. But no, over the weekend he posted a picture. Because does it kind of annoy you when people on social media are like, happy birthday me, here's a slideshow of my friends and things I've done, but they're all pictures that are like, heavily angled at me. I'm just kind of like, man, it's bad enough when people do a slideshow wishing happy birthday to somebody else. I really don't like it. But Ed, ever the humble guy.
I don't know if I see a lot of the happy birthday posts.
Well, they're pretty rare, but when you see them, okay, well, if you've never seen one, good for you, I guess. But I've seen a couple lately, and I'm like, what the fuck? They're kind of like Zac Efron's Happy MLK Day. I'm glad I have a 10 million Instagram followers.
Oh yeah, Zac Efron in the same
Not
tweet.
Zach Glenn
said grateful for 2 things on this MLK Day, like Martin Luther King Jr.'s bravery and that I just hit 10 million followers on Instagram. Certainly equitable things.
I don't give a fuck.
Who's to say which is more important?
Yeah, I don't care that was 3 months ago. That is culturally relevant forever.
Yeah, that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on the internet.
Ed O'Brien posted a picture, I think it may have even been the day after his birthday, of him with his dog, a beautiful, like, salt and peppery, like, herding dog, like, giving him a kiss. And I was just like, God damn, do I love this guy. And God damn, did I compare him to Ben Affleck a lot in our early episodes when establishing this Ed joke that he is super good looking, which is the truth. He has aged better than Ben Affleck. I will just say that much. Much as they looked vaguely similar at the outset.
Well,
that's all.
He might not be struggling with some of the same health issues that Ben Affleck seems to struggle off and on with. That
No, Ed has a glass of wine at night if he's feeling a little crazy.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. 1.5 if it's Friday.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
On a Friday. I'll tell you what on a Friday means to me. An extra white wine spritzer, yeah. Do you think he's like Flanders when there's a Simpsons joke where there's a Simpsons joke where Flanders like refers to the one time he got out of control from drinking, and it like cuts to him getting in bed with Maude, and she referenced like, did you read Ann Landers today? And he goes, Ann Landers is a boring old biddy. And it's like he's gone too far.
No, I don't remember.
That's Ed after a glass. That's Ed after an extra glass. Well, Zach, I don't know how to transition to this gracefully, but one thing I know that we wanted to talk about on pod was that a character who has come up from our lives as brothers outside of being Radiohead fans, something that has been brought up a few different times on the podcast, is a story we heard, a story of dubious origin about a surfboard cutting off somebody's arm on a highway. Listeners, you can go back and listen to that on, I believe, Amnesiac Part 1.
In Rainbows Part 1, there's some follow-up.
Yeah, there is some follow-up. Our grandfather passed away last week, 93 years old, long, interesting life, just a guy who really did it all, raised 4 kids, I was trying to figure out how many grandkids the other day, but I believe 16 grandchildren, and somewhere around the same number
17.
in terms of 17 grandchildren, and somewhere around either surpassing or close to in terms of great grandchildren. And Zach and I talked about is it appropriate to eulogize a loved one on a podcast where we get pretty silly, but I just felt like, because we have talked about him before, that we didn't want to let it pass without just saying something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love a lot of the things you just said. I loved how you said long life, interesting guy, or and so forth. Yeah, super, super interesting guy, first generation American. And you think about 93 years, and obviously there was a world war. Obviously there was, not to contextualize everything in terms of war or politics, but obviously there was the World War, when he was a young child. There was the civil rights movement in the 60s. There was, you could go on and on and on and on as far as what this person's, sum total of life was. A person who would proudly tell you that he traveled to every single state in the United States more than once, had been all over Europe, had been stationed in Europe himself, not during the aforementioned World War II, but those are experiences that are very, very formidable, and it's cool that he was willing to talk with us about them. And those are people that, are becoming more and more rare. I think it might have even been in our last episode. I don't know if we kept all of it or not, but we spoke, and it was relevant to The Smile, because we were talking about the origin of the poem in which the band took their name. That I theorized some of that was maybe some leftover World War II type trauma or something that the author had observed. And people that lived through that period in history are nearly gone, and I'm talking about all things that I just mentioned, right? Whether it was that war, whether it was civil rights, whether it was just their own experiences, right? And I'm not trying to embellish here things, listeners, and say that like I got insight into those events or those movements through my grandpa, but Walker and I, our great grandma, was somebody that was willing to talk about periods in those histories such as that. Whereas we called this grandpa Papa, he kind of equally would flag periods in time and just tell you about them casually. And that's all that to say, I'm so grateful that we had that person and that resource in our life, because it's a window into the past that isn't like a textbook or something like that, or isn't even like a book. You get to just kind of hear, if you're lucky enough, what it was like to be alive during certain eras of time. And I just would love to encourage people, if you have that opportunity. I know grandparents are easy to love, but sometimes easy to forget too. And I never felt that with any of my grandparents, and I just feel so blessed and fortunate. This isn't a call to action, actually, for our listeners to do anything. I just wanted to kind of express my gratitude for having somebody like that in my life, and that's all I have to say.
I really love that, because with a age gap like we had with our grandfather, and him being somebody, it's like I guess the thing that, is often said and should be said, I'm not putting this sentiment down at all, but, when somebody passes away, it's usually a reminder, either internally or it's said by people to you to, make sure you really like appreciate the time that you have with people. In this case, that's not a sentiment that I'm really feeling in a super pronounced way, because I feel like it's such a rarity to be, approaching my late 30s and have had access throughout my life, from this point in my life to like my earliest memories. Zach and I lived on the same property as our grandparents when we were from when I was like 4 to 6.
Yeah. My very first memory is on that property in my entire life. My very first memory.
Yeah, me too. My earliest memories are all there too. And, and so so when somebody lives such a long life, and not only that, lives a relatively healthy life, right up into the end, really the sense is just gratitude that you had that opportunity to get to know somebody for that long. But what you were saying about, the past and access to the past, like through older people like that, it just really does remind me that it's like that age difference, it does kind of put him in a somewhat alien world to the world I live in now. And it is, so you hear about people from that generation who don't, for whatever reasons, maybe good ones, but don't want to talk about what they saw, what they went through, what they did, and even a close relationship with a grandparent, in my experience, is different than a peer.
Sure.
Yeah,
of course.
There are things that I don't have access to, but I did always feel like I would get these stories and anecdotes from, because now I'm remembering another episode, we made a lot of hay out of the idea of receiving an orange but the thing is I when I would hear for a Christmas gift, to complete the sentence, sorry. But the thing is that when I would hear these stories from Papa about these things that are just like, what, like old timey shit is this that you are telling me? It wasn't normally expressed in this like maudlin or like wistful or like kind of revisionist seeming, and humor is what there was just like, he would just tell these like crazy stories. One that's jumping to mind for me, and maybe this isn't mine to tell, and if not, we can cut it. But
no,
a story of his dad, a man that I did not know, but our mom did, her grandpa,
Abuelito.
Who sounded like a very, a hard man from a hard time. And also I know a man who was very beloved and all that, but it's just,
but no, and intense. He went through a lot to be alive.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And I remember Papa telling me this story about him as a kid teasing this steer calf that they had, and his dad catching him doing it and making him get on the thing and ride it, and it just like throwing him through the air multiple times. And he's telling this story laughing with like tears streaming down his face. And I was dying laughing as he was telling it because of how he told it, because our grandpa had such a good sense of humor, and something that I like to think passed through all the generations down to us and down to my kid and the kids that our cousins of our generation have and everything. And it's only later that you kind of look at things like that and you go, wow, that must have been like kind of a messed up thing that happened to you. Yeah. And I'm not telling anybody that that's how they have to process traumatic things that happen, but it's so in terms of you speaking to an older generation, it's just nice to get to be able to hear about things that have no correlation to anything going on in my life.
I love that. Yeah.
Place, and actions of that story are not anything resembling anything that I have gone through. And it's fun to be able to get to hear somebody share that stuff that is very strange to me.
It's also worth noting, well, actually, let me just pause quickly and say, no, I love how you put that it's like, not everyone has to, if it was a traumatic experience for Papa, our grandfather, he had at least, there'd been enough time for him to contextualize it and laugh about it. And that is a gift. And I think it's a very rare gift when somebody is able to talk about what could potentially be thought of as like a traumatic experience or something that you wouldn't want to talk about, and retell it, the humorous aspects of it. And it's not, when somebody does that and it's really fucking painful, they're like, and then my mom left me in a shopping cart for 8 hours. And you're like, this isn't funny. And I can tell you don't think it's funny. But that is a gift, though, to be able to tell those kinds of stories. And I obviously, what we can and should talk off mic about this as long as we can. We appreciate listeners for reminiscing with us. But if there is just, I think one thing to celebrate, it is that we had, such great windows into the past, again, through our Papa Arnold Solis. Alnulfo Madrigal Solis would be his Christian name, I guess. You know how you would say it, first generation. Really successful business owner and the last of, I want to say, 9 siblings. So, certainly I don't get too hung up on, was there, an heir to so-and-so with like a last name. I mean, that kind of stuff is worth noting when it happens. But in this case, kind of the end of a family that represented so much of, and not to get too fucking corny, but of what I think politicians will falsely bandy about as the American dream. It was not easy to immigrate to America. And in Corpus Christi, Texas, where he was raised, actually, it was always our mother, God love her as well, who told us the orange story. But, it's true. I mean, he grew up with nothing, with dirt floors. That is the one thing I remember him saying. And when he was tripping out on the fact that he had linoleum floors as an old man. And, to, like Walker said, raise 4 wonderful daughters and have 17 grandkids and great grandkids and come from literally nothing. And I don't want to make this about race or anything like that, but to be a minority, and it's incredible. And I do think that is some semblance of achievement of what they call the American dream. And I'm so glad to have seen it.
Very beautifully said. And I just think, and also to not be too corny about it, the surfboard story, it's something that, was a thrown off a somewhat thrown off anecdote that came up organically that to me serves as just like a very indicative example of just like what a funny, weird guy this dude was. And even when he was full of crap, I think kind of knew he was being full of crap. And could
incredible salesman, listeners.
Yeah. And exactly. And it's just like I don't the surfboard story is not one that I am convinced even he believed, but I know that he made it impactful enough that it has survived 30 years after we heard it, and that multiple of our cousins reached out after we talked about that to be like, oh yeah, the guy with the surfboard, like,
right.
He could make legends out of something pretty silly and pretty out there. And rest in peace, Arnold Solis. We love you, Papa.
Amen to that.
So traveling from the distant past, right? The surfboard story, Radiohead, right? That's all the distant past. Now, Zach, for this episode, we're going to stay in the past, but the not so distant past. The year is 2022. It's the end of 2022. It's December. It's December 18th, 2022. You, myself, and former guests of the show, Kailani Glenn and Nicole Love, go and see this new band, The Smile, at the Bill Graham in San Francisco, California. Did we not? Do you deny it?
No, I was there.
Here's the key thing about the show that we saw. On this tour, we saw, I believe, the second to last show of the tour, if not that close to it. It was definitely towards the end. And they were playing a lot of new material on this, as well as almost the entirety of their album, A Light for Attracting Attention. Now, we listened to all the songs on A Light for Attracting Attention last week. Even though some of these are arranged differently live, we chose this week to focus on the new material that we heard. And I think it'll serve as a very interesting comparison when inevitably we do get that sophomore effort from The Smile and we get to hear what from this tour made the album and how different it is. Because some of these new songs sound more in their development stage than others. But I went ahead and pulled all the songs that we heard that are not on A Light from Attracting Attention. These are pulled from different concerts in the tour. They're not all from the show we saw, but I think it'll be really, really interesting to go through these and Now, for you, is this going to be the first time you're hearing some of these since the concert?
Yeah, I mean, I took several videos on my phone, but, they were short. When I go to concerts, I usually, it's so funny. I usually wait until I see like other people holding up their phones as if it's like a social faux pas, which it can be, of course, if you're much taller than the person behind you or whatever, you want to maybe avoid raising your arms with a device as well. But, I pulled out my phone during We Don't Know What Tomorrow Brings, during Speech Bubbles, and, a few others. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to list them off. So I've obviously watched those videos. We posted one or two to the Idio Talk Instagram in our stories. But in general, no. I mean, it is one of those memories, I think, as great concerts can be, where I have unfortunately been to some shows, not many, but where I could tell the group was having a bad night, or maybe they're not good at playing their material live. But I'm grateful that I haven't been to many of those shows. This was not that. This was musicians that I believe are at the top of their class, however that's defined, but in terms of creativity, skill, whatever, and seeing that on display played with a lot of energy and passion. But it is rather blurry. I just know that I took that aspect in. I know that I was being critical enough. I've never been a festival guy, I sound like such a fucking nerd, getting super high or drunk or whatever when I go to music shows. But this was something in which I really wanted to take that experience in with as much sobriety as I can. And as I've noted on some episode in the past, I did get one beer, and $22 later, I said to myself, all right, well, I enjoyed that. So ladies and gentlemen, however much you count one beer about an hour before the show, I just know it was amazing is all I'm trying to say, but I don't have a lot of detailed memories.
Stellar experience. I would agree with that. So that's how we feel about it now. But Zach, would it surprise you? And I know it won't because you know about this. Listeners, okay. Would it surprise you to know that we also went on the record about our feelings the night of the concert? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, it has aged very well in our memories, but fortunately, we don't have to rely on memory because we checked in on our recording devices a couple times throughout this night. So I'm going to play now our thoughts in the car that we had, the four of us, heading to the show, where we made some predictions and talked about what we were anticipating and what we thought were going to happen. I'm going to just kind of let this play. It's a few minutes, but feel free, Zach, to, talk over it or chime in if you want to. But we're just going to kind of let this play, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Here we go.
All right, Walker, talk to us.
Okay, so we're in the car on our way to the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, and let's just have everybody identify themselves. So in the car, we have myself, Walker Glenn.
Myself, Nicole Love.
Kailani Glenn is here.
And I'm Zach Glenn.
And we are on our way to see The Smile, and I just thought maybe we could get anybody's general thoughts about what they expect to see tonight, or predictions, expectations, things they would be excited by, things they would be disappointed by. And I would say that that's all up for interpretation in any way that anyone wants to go with it. I'm really letting people
let's go clockwise. Let's
go how they want with
me. Yeah, we'll go you, Nicole, me, Kai.
Okay. I have a prediction. I think they will open with their first single, You Will Never Work in Television Again.
Love it.
Because it's energetic, and because even though York and company are not ones to cotton to our expectations, I think they know, hey, this is a show, this is the city of San Francisco. We're in
where it gets cold.
Show these Yanks.
We'll talk about
what we're doing up here. And even though there's no chance of you getting to hear Paranoid Android,
notably none of our predictions are that Tom will spend the whole show bitching about how cold he is
on the open hi-hat.
Yeah,
which I just also think would be a cool way to start the show. Tom,
I could tell I disagree with you even just listening to this.
Tom and not Tom.
Tom and H Tom.
Oh,
Big Tom and Little Tom, and maybe Tom with an H is Big Tom.
Yeah.
You could call him Tom Tom as a drum reference.
I like that. Okay, how about Big Tom and Tom Tom?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay. So I think that Tom Tom's gonna walk out.
Say, fear not, my love.
Sit down. I'm predicting a squeal of feedback from Jonny Greenwood's amp. You know, he's not like precious about that sort of thing. So
that one you agree with.
He'll turn up the volume before he hits a chord, and we'll get something like that. And then that 5 count on the open hi-hat.
Look, that's a nice way to start, Tommy.
Yeah. And then we're into.
I've not listened to this since we recorded that. This is
love it.
Really good.
Nicole, do you have any thoughts about what we might see tonight?
This is important.
I'm just along for the ride. I just want to see a good show.
Classic.
Love it.
I am wondering, as I wonder at almost all occasions, how many black people will be there. To clarify for the listening audience, I'm a black person, so
we know of at least one.
Yeah, that does have a different tenor if you're not.
If you're not, yes.
Oh yeah.
But I will be on Black Person Watch tonight. And that I guarantee that.
And can we check in with you maybe at different points in the show? And
we
won't
that?
even have to. We won't say what it is, but we'll just be like, Nicole, can we get a number?
Can we get a head count?
Yeah, and you'll be like 9 or whatever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Can I also, without pimping you too hard, say that we went to see Phoebe Bridgers together?
Yes.
A very white occasion.
A very white occasion.
And so there's an over-under happening here, too, of where there'll be less or more black folks at the Smile than Phoebe Bridgers.
And the prediction is less.
Yeah.
You're going to go less?
I'm going to go less.
Okay.
That's great. So you've got this beat covered.
I'm all over it.
Now, do you encourage the other 3 of us to also count black folks in the
I
show,
encourage you not to worry. I'm on it.
Okay.
I would discourage you,
I would
actually.
With white people's record of counting other races is not very good.
Not good. Well, the thing that we might be looking for is black women with their white boyfriends, as we also like to be on the lookout for also.
Yeah. So. And that is something, if we see that, I will be making meaningful eye contact with you about.
Yes, that's us.
All right,
so we got Nicole Love on BPW, that's Black Person Watch. I love it. I don't know that I really have any predictions. I predict that I will be excited and satisfied, and I can't lie and say there isn't a part of me that doesn't hope that, like, for some reason, Tom looks out to the audience and goes, "San Francisco, we've always loved you," and he's Irish now, and plays like Street Spirit or something, you know. But I know it won't happen.
A song even Radiohead has not played in many years.
Right. But I predict some new material. You know, I've listened to A Light for Attracting Attention many times this last week. Today, like, was the first time in a couple months listening to it all the way through, and today. So I know the songs quite well, I would say, as well as you can. And I do feel like there might be, 1 or 2 new songs or maybe like bridges into other songs or something that are just unfamiliar. I think the things that I've started to notice, one of the things I've noticed is that, like, new material can manifest so interestingly with Tom and company. So it might not be like, this is our new song. It might be like an interlude or I don't know, So that's kind of my prediction, is maybe an unconventional presentation of new material. Or old. Maybe it'll be something that isn't a Radiohead song but has been in the back pocket for a while. But Ty, I would love to hear from you.
I'm going in light on predictions and expectations. I'm ready to just be led on the musical journey, but I am hoping for some dope lighting design. I think there's going to be some cool visuals, because I feel like Tom, of all the members of Radiohead, is like concerned with making sure that dope visuals are part of the full package. I also really hope we get to see Tom dance, you guys. Yes. I really want to see Tom dance, and that's about it for me.
Big Tom?
Big Tom. I didn't say Tom Tom.
No, I was just clarifying for myself. I don't have the nicknames.
There's 2 Toms in this band.
Yeah. There's Tom and Tom Tom. We're talking about.
And then we got the Toms
one
on the
Tom.
drums. Okay,
Tom number 1.
Now, even with his bass guitar, do you foresee, or his guitar, because they do switch out. I've seen a lot of footage.
Jonny Greenwood's playing bass on a lot of these songs.
If Jonny randomly brought back the arm brace, I'd also, that'd feel cool. It's not going to happen.
Well, they haven't played that in years, Guy. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Not allowed to dream in this car.
Clearly annoyed with me.
Yeah, that was a nice.
I'm sorry, I talked over the last thing Kai said, which is very funny, which is we're not allowed to dream in this car. Now, Zach, here is my.
Oh, is that the end of the clip?
That's the end of the clip.
End of the pre-show clip. Okay,
that's the end of the pre-show clip. Here is my takeaway, and then I'll kick it over to you because mine is brief. I will say, everyone in the car had predictions that came true, except for one person, and that person is me. Everybody else, up to very specific ones, and I don't want to say which ones because we'll talk about it because we check in, but everyone else had predictions come true. But that's the first time you've heard that, maybe ever, since you lived it. What jumped out at you about the attitude going into the show?
I don't know. I mean, I really liked, I could just kind of like hear the excitement in our voices, which is like really fun. You know, Dimitri Martin has this wonderful joke about digital cameras. So it's from over 20 years ago about why he loves digital cameras because they let you reminisce instantly, which is what I kind of feel like we're doing. But, you know, I don't know. I know the four individuals to varying degrees, but, you know, the three individuals outside of myself in that car pretty darn well. And I just think it's very sweet to reminisce about a time that was not that long ago and just hear that excitement in our voices. I love that you're, you know, teasing yourself. I don't know that you were wrong about anything, but I think in terms of your predictions, I can't quite, because if I say that we'll cover that in a minute, but
well, I don't want to say which ones are right, but it's okay to say they did not open with "You Will Never Work in Television Again," and they did open with the same, so there was no squeal of feedback as Jonny took the stage.
I don't think it's on mic, or I may not have said it, and if I didn't say it, then it doesn't count. But I thought I recalled countering with, I think they're going to open with the same. But that must have been like a conversation Kai and I had or something. But anyway, neither here nor there. I love how, this is the last thing I'll say of what we literally just heard, but I love when former guest of the show, friend of the show, Nicole Love says, I will be a black person. Watch it. Just to clarify, I am black. That is definitely something you want to clarify.
Yeah, it definitely hits different if you're like, no, I just do that.
I did not. I forgot that conversation had taken place. I am curious, and we'll cover this as we listen and as we go, if the over/under compared to Phoebe Bridgers was correct, because I don't know, but that's not really what the central thrust of this episode is going to be about informationally. I just forgot about that conversation even taking place. But
it was a part of our evening for one participant, and it does. And don't worry, we come back to it. So should I play?
Great.
Yes. So what we'll do now is we checked in with each other in the venue after watching the opening act.
Oh, okay.
So we'll listen to that, and then we can get into the songs we heard and sum it up with our post-show reflections, which were also recorded. So here we go. This is us inside the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium after just watching Robert Stillman.
Okay, we're doing a quick check-in. The opener, Robert Stillman, is played, and we're waiting for the smile to come out. I'm still with Nicole and Zach and Kai. And this is Walker. Does anybody have any thoughts about anything that's happened so far? Hi, you made some calls.
Well, I think I was the closest into calling what the opening act would be.
Sure.
It was essentially Ed if he played jazz saxophone.
Yes.
A highly textured, abstract jazz saxophone act. It was lovely.
Yeah. Do you think Ed would have been able to do all that? No, that's right. Sorry, go ahead, Kai.
Hard no.
Okay. And Nicole, do you have any numbers for us on BPW?
I want to reserve for a full count at the end.
Right. There's still some hanging chads at this point. All right. Anything else, anybody?
No, no.
All right. And also we have former guests of the show here independently of each other. Aaron Ross is here somewhere, and Jesse Rimler's here somewhere. We're going to see if we can find... And Kailani Glenn.
Basically an Idio Talk guest reunion here. It's everyone except for Brad Osborne and...
Sean Perrin. That's right, that's true. And we haven't told anybody about the podcast yet, but we're hoping to do some promo before the night's over. Maybe with Sam himself.
Well, I had a spare can of spray paint, so I may have told some people in the bathroom stall that we'll see it in the future. Idio Talk Podcast is spray painted on the wall now.
All right, and we see some guitar techs tuning things and lots of activity on stage, so we'll report back later.
Okay. No comments. That was very informational.
I mean, how lucky are the Idio Talkers that we had the wherewithal to record this stuff? My observations are a great Ed O'Brien joke from Kai.
Yes.
With her hard no. And also, I am very pleased with myself then and now about my hanging Chad joke. I can hear
get that.
That was the perforations that didn't tear on the disputed 2000 election when Florida went for Bush.
Yeah.
Hanging Chads was votes that were miscounted because of, I believe it was because of perforations that were supposed to tear that didn't. Yeah. So, and I can hear in my voice that I'm quite pleased with myself. And I've also chuckled at it each of the 2 times I've listened to it over the last 48 hours. So, yeah. So, should we get into the songs?
Yeah, please.
So, I guess actually also it's probably worth pulling up the set list, even though we're not going to go, but just because the first unreleased song we played was followed by a pretty amazing block. So, let me just pull that up.
Please do that.
So as I said, we're not going to go through like song by song, but just to kind of like show what the vibe was by the time we got to this new song, they played The Same, Thin Thing, The Opposite, Speech Bubbles, A Hairdryer, which was the highlight for me.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Waving a White Flag. And then after Waving a White Flag, Tom said, as we mentioned last episode, we're a new band. So we're going to play some new songs, if that's all right. Something to that effect. And the first one of those was introduced as Colors Fly, and it sounds like this. Starts with Tom groaning. Is this coming back to you?
Oh, yeah.
Now, one interesting thing I would point out about this is that Jonny Greenwood played a very vintage-looking Gibson hollow body for this song. That I actually don't know if it's like a modified... I guess it is an electric, but it looked really old. And
it is. He's had that in his guitar arsenal for decades.
Okay.
That's his alternate to the Telly, and in my favorite rendition of I Might Be Wrong from Jules Holland, and from others, he's playing that what I think to be this guitar. And it has a very distinct kind of restored look on the body of it. But Walker, this song stands out in my mind so much because of the modal playing that Jonny Greenwood is doing in the riff, which is something we've talked a lot about, like sort of the delay, a lot of the new sounds that we heard in that when we covered the album. I would say this song falls into that, but is more modal in its, and listeners, it might sound somewhat, I don't know, Egyptian, and so forth. It does sound to me like it has a Phrygian dominant flavor to it. I don't know, because this is only the second time I've ever heard it in my life, but I really enjoy that. That's all to say. I don't want to hog the mic too much.
No, not at all. I'm trying to look up what this guitar is. Is it a Gibson ES 335?
That sounds right, yeah. That's a very old model. Oh, and this breakdown right here. Killer.
Yeah, I remember this being really exciting as we heard it. Listening to it again, and this is not a criticism, but just noteworthy for me. I do feel that Tom hasn't maybe found the vocal melody to this one yet. And
I agree.
It's one I'm very curious to hear how it develops, because the riff is really locked in, but it seems to me like he's saying some variation on the phrase, you can change your mind and let your colors fly, over and over. And it's a little bit, Tom sometimes is one to obfuscate or kind of bury the melody. So he might go that way with this song, but it just feels like he's trying a lot of different things vocally. And I'm really curious to hear if more lyrics come out and what the melody kind of develops into.
Great way to put it. I mean, I've often, not often, especially since we've been doing this project, and I learn more about different musicians' methods and so forth of how they kind of write music. U2 comes to mind in that a lot of times they'll just sort of jam in the studio, and because Bono is such a talented singer, he'll just kind of do what Tom seems to be doing over this song. Obviously, you know what I'm saying, different, but I do feel like that's what Tom is doing. And as we've kind of gone through the albums, Pyramid Song seems a song like that, where Tom could just kind of over it because the attack points are so distinct. 2 + 2 = 5 seems like it's very, very, very refined in terms of the album version. Because of the dissonance of those chords and the changes within the song, that also feels like a song that you would kind of start just, where even is the melody in this? And while this song, like you said, the riff is really ironed out, I would say it has a Latin flavor mixed with kind of like a Phrygian or Locrian sound. Doesn't really matter, listeners. That's an exotic scale type is what I mean to say. And yeah, for stuff like that, what's so cool about Phrygian dominant or other exotic type scales is those often represent the roots of a thrash metal or heavy metal, whatever you want to say, type of song, but they're played very differently. Whereas with this, I feel like it's embodying a lot of different influences and sounds, but it does seem a difficult riff to find your vocal spots, because even finding a melody is difficult. And I kind of think that that's probably how, when you're a singer, I love to imagine the words were written, you say yes, I say no, you say why, I say go, like I imagine songs being that organized, because that is a very, very kind of methodical song. Hello, Goodbye by the Beatles is what I was referencing. But even in the case of the Beatles, there is a lot of like, and that's the part that I think as non-professionals, we love to watch, because it is groups like the Beatles, it is groups like Radiohead. That shit's really painful to do when you're trying to jam with other people, because you got to be really vulnerable if you're just picking out words or setting or whatever that you have, or you're just finding a melody. And I feel really privileged that we got to kind of enjoy it that way, because I do recall, not distinctly, but I do recall feeling that way about that song a bit now that you put it like that. And those are my general thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the music sounds at home with the stuff we've heard from The Smile so far. What's interesting is to me is just like I find the developing new stuff even more eclectic than what is on the album, which is really eclectic, which makes me really excited, because I love the idea that this is going to be a band that does not have to. Not that Radiohead is, I think, extremely diverse in their sounds, but we've just talked about, it's my opinion, at least, that they have a lot to live up to, and that sometimes they leave things off that I think are great, but are maybe not as quote unquote serious as the stuff that makes the album. And I love the idea that The Smile can continue to be a home for whatever ideas sound the best. And that one, like I said, that one, if a worked out version of that is something I could picture on A Light for Attracting Attention. There is stuff that comes up that is pretty surprising to me.
Last little compare on that song, what it reminds me of in sort of the angular aggression and repetition of what sounds like a multi-part riff. Even when it sounds like it's repeating, you could tell there's little changes, as is the Greenwood way, as is the good songwriter way, is Bangers and Mash. It has a lot of kind of like chromatic half steps, it sounds like, in it, in pairs. Listeners, go listen to that song. It's off in Rainbow's disc 2, disc with a K. It also reminds me of Morning Mr. Magpie without the muted quality. And I compared those songs to one another in Jonny Greenwood's Attack and sort of the style of playing. And I would say, well, things don't have to connect as far as sounding like it throughout this, but I that thought did occur to me at the time and now. That's all.
Should we go to the next one?
Please.
The next unreleased song that they played was called Under Our Pillows. Okay. So this song is about when you're a kid and you lose a tooth and you put it out for the old tooth fairy, the old gray lady as we call her. And if you're lucky, she's going to come give you a couple quid in exchange for that bit of calcified material that came out of the old head.
Man, we got some existing vibes a lot, don't we?
Some existing?
From songs that are on the album.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the thing that jumps out to me about these first two is that it's very much the Greenwood guitar mode that he's working in is very at home with what the Smile has been presenting. Now, weirdly, this one for me was kind of the one moment seeing them live that I had trouble connecting to this song. Not that I didn't like it, but I just kind of didn't. I was like, I'm kind of missing what this one is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually a little easy. Listening to it now, it's a little easier for me to latch onto than Colors Fly is.
Interesting.
Melodically, anyway.
I remember being one of the many folks, if not all of them, that cheered when Tom said his somewhat vulnerable statement of we're a new band, so we're going to play some new material or new songs. Colors Fly, to say I was pleasantly surprised sounds so dumb, but there was just a little bit of, listeners, even when it's from something you love, when a new film comes out from a director I love, there is that little bit of anxiety of, oh man, is it going to be good? And so Colors Fly, I was set at ease because I was really engaged. I think this song, I don't know if this is the version that we were presented when we saw them live. Tom's vocals don't sound very good on this version to me.
He's pitchy.
But this was the moment, because I wasn't a huge fan of the song title. Man, I sound so shallow. Where I was like, oh, I'm in because this shit rocks. And this is a continuation of what I love the most about, well, one of the things I love about the Smile, which is this refreshed, energetic sort of rock attack, albeit very unconventional in its sound. So I just remember, because you're playing the songs in the order that they were presented to us, at least, correct?
Yes.
So, and yeah, anyway, I got kind of lost in the music at this moment, and I remember just being like, I kind of want to hear as much new stuff as they're going to give us, because it felt rather early in the show at that point still.
Yeah.
Or, near the midpoint, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny that you point that out about the vocals because, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I was watching some of the From the Basement stuff last night, and Tom's vocals were just flawless. And it made me think about how not intuitive some of these chord changes and melodies in Tom York songs in either band are.
In a hairdryer, and they're insane.
Exactly. And listening to these live versions of the new songs, I do hear him struggling with the vocals in a way that I don't hear him struggling with the vocals on the songs from A Light for Attracting Attention.
Yeah.
So it just made me realize, I'm like, that maybe is indicating that the vocals are the things that are the most in development up until the song is finished. And
for sure. I think they are.
He's spending a long process finding those melodies and finding which notes are the right notes.
Yep. This feels like a new song, even though it is distinctly connected, and I'm very excited to see if they're able to use both parts within the same song, or if they break them out into this last part of feels like an outro or a coda to a completely unrelated song in a way that Tom York and company, Tom and Jonny really are so brilliant at. No surprise being my favorite example being There. Those sections are so at home with one another. The song would not be a fraction of what it is without them both, but they are very, very different. We've talked all about that and the form and everything. It's kind of what I feel like this song is representing is, Jonny really seems to know what he's doing, whereas Tom, like you said, is kind of finding his way through it. But yeah, like I said, I just remember being so engaged during Under Our Pillows because of how it doesn't sound as energetic as maybe I remember it, but I know as things go on, we'll hear that energy. And it wasn't Tom at the keys presenting new material, which I would have loved as well.
Yeah. And it should be noted, most of what we're listening to are fan captured videos. So, there's like a diminished quality from what we were experiencing live and what we will all experience when we get a second album. But I agree with you. I do think these two sections are really cool, but I'm curious to hear if there's more of a bridge between the two sections.
Yeah.
When they make the album, because you're right. Those sections of There are very different, but the transition is totally seamless.
It's flawless.
And this is more, okay, we've built into this first section, and now it's kind of like stopping so that Jonny can start playing this different chord structure, and then we'll jam that out. It's two jams without space between them right now, and it'll be curious to see how they flow.
But they were exactly that. They were jams, and I don't think that the Smile are a jam band. And what I mean by that is the Smile, which is interesting, the Smile were formed from musicians jamming. I know it's not that simple, listeners, but I do get the sense that is, and I do get the sense that maybe that's how some of these songs were assembled, similar to Hail to the Thief. Tom and Jonny seem to have different focuses in terms of their level of perfection and accuracy. I feel like that was a jam that fan who took that video and ourselves at the venue that we were at were treated to. I don't think that that is the maybe Tom and Jonny's favorite way to present material, particularly not Tom, because I do think he likes, while the vocals are different from the way they are presented live for the album, that has to do with Tom's familiarity with the melodies. And I don't want to keep just talking for the sake of doing so. I just feel like when we get it, even if it's a jarring, because when Radiohead transition into another part, most of the time it is flawless. This is something Walker and I talked a lot about during King of Limbs. But when it is jarring, it's jarring in a way that there's such excellent songwriters. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm not saying that Tom didn't seem joyful or excited to perform that, but I don't feel like that. I don't feel like I have a good wrap up on this point, so I'm going to stop talking.
No, but I get what you're saying. I think that the whole approach to this project, the presentation of new material is very much in the spirit of what the Smile has been so far. I feel like the fans have more access to what the process is, even though Radiohead debuts throughout their career, they have developed new material on the road, but it just feels like they're letting us see the seams a little more. And
I agree.
If they were not such world-class musicians, that would not be the concert experience I wanted.
Sure.
But in the time of their career where they only have one album of material, I was blown away at what an entertaining show they were able to make out of one album of material and a bunch of stuff they're still working out. And also, those first two songs sound more in the early stages of being worked out to me than other new material they present. There's stuff that sounds really worked out. It will remain to be seen how close to whatever studio version they will end up being. But these next couple songs are also very interesting to me. This one that we're going to play now is, well, actually, I won't say the title because Tom introduces it, and I'll let him speak for himself. What I will say, because I do want to let this one breathe a little bit, is that this one to me sounds like nothing we have heard on or off the album so far. So I'm going to let Tom introduce this one.
I think this is called Loose Change for People on Balconies. I'm not sure. Usually the last thing is the title, usually when the record is being mastered. I can go anywhere that I want. I just gotta turn myself inside out, back to front. Cut out chains, worn out faces. Just add some sparkles to create the right.
And then Robert Stillman playing saxophone on stage with them. Zach, what are your thoughts about this? Do you remember this?
I do. Who's doing what, though? Who's on bass and who's on piano?
Tom's on bass, playing a very vocal melody on the bass.
That's what I was going to say. That's what struck me upon this
and
listen.
And then listen
that
to
I
this.
didn't recall.
So, I'm sorry, I asked you to talk, and then
okay.
It changes to a new section here. And then back into this main section.
I don't mind at all, Walker. It's okay that you're calling attention to it. To me, this almost has like a Randy Newman quality of something that could go great during like a midsection of a Pixar film. By the way, Walker is a bigger Randy Newman fan in terms of his body of work than I am. He's just listened to it a lot more. But I have enjoyed Randy Newman outside of just the Pixar contributions, which are brilliant. But it has a very specific vibe to me of the way Tom's using his voice, not necessarily the busyness of the bass line, but the piano. And Randy Newman also really, really kind of great at sneaking in some key change and section changes as well. Mm-hmm. It's a little boring of commentary just compared to another artist, but not some. Even though this sort of groove is very familiar to latter day Radiohead, if not Amnesiac onward, there's a different vibe, but a little bit of familiarity to it. What Tom is doing on the drums is a lot busier than I think Phil would maybe do as the kind of drummer he is during a ballad such as this. Those are kind of my general thoughts. What about you?
I think those are great, and I love the Randy Newman comparison.
Even the title.
I think, yeah, that's true. This is such a. I just was so stunned by this when we saw it live, because this is out of nowhere, this sound.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I just think that this sounds nothing like anything this band has presented so far. And I mean that in the best possible way.
That is well said. Yes, you're right.
I love this type of music. It sounds like 60s psychedelic pop to me. I had a different comparison. I think this sounds more like the Kinks than Radiohead.
Oh, okay.
But you also brought up Amnesiac. My other thought was, if I could hear this on a record in the Radiohead canon, it would be Amnesiac, just because they're experimenting with jazz and different forms of rock on that album, more than at other points. But I love this song. I'm really excited to hear, and it feels like a jazz influenced kind of pop melody to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think this is really awesome, and I think it's really different. I don't think it has no precedent in Tom York's catalog.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's done anything that sounds particularly similar to this. And I certainly don't think he's done anything in this
I love this new section
in a while.
We're at a new tempo in a way. But yeah, man, I agree. And I mean, Harry Nilsson vibes a little bit, perhaps. Harry Nilsson had a lot more energy. Not always. And I haven't listened to his entire catalog, but I am a big fan of his. Yeah, I do like the dollars and cents comparison that we kind of both made, or At Home in Amnesiac. I think that has to do with the drumming too on a song like Knives Out, on a song like Dollars and Cents. The thing that I like about it in comparison to that era of Radiohead, I'm not even trying to say that song specifically, is there is a brightness to it. And granted, the melody goes a lot of different places, but this is one that I'm really excited for them to hopefully continue to work out. And I would say that Colors Flying Under Our Pillows are songs I'm slightly more excited for them to work out, whether they stay as they were presented just because of the driving nature and what Johnny's doing on the guitar. But that one, only slightly less so. And it doesn't even matter. But they can't, I shouldn't say that. Tom doesn't ever seem to want to write a melodically simple song, even if it follows a logical chord progression or somewhat predictable, which is quite rare, but Free in the Knowledge would be in the more logical territory. It doesn't ever feel too forced, which I love. Sometimes songwriters that are so brilliant at whatever chord progression or riff they're going to present into a song feels a little forced. And I don't really have any Radiohead examples or outside of that, but I think you you might or something. And I really do like that one ain't done. It's not finished, but I think if and when it is, it'll make for a beautiful complete song. That's again.
Yeah, that's so interesting to me because, I mean, I love that we're both appreciating all of the new material that we're being presented with, but it just does show that even though we both, we're on a podcast about a band that we both mutually really love, it just shows where the little differences in our taste are, because that was and is, for me, at the point in the new material that we've talked about, the thing that I was the most excited about.
Interesting. Okay.
Because it is, I think I understood your point correctly, that this song, it kind of follows a melodically conventional sound, but there's still, you can hear still all these weird chord changes in it that are not intuitive. And totally. I can hear Tom struggling vocally to land those changes in his voice. So I love that, but I also am just like, it just feels like such a 60s pop sound filtered through Tom York to me that, and the things you compared it to are some of my favorite things in music. Nilsson, Randy Newman. I think it's very Beatlesy. I think it's very Kinksy. And the idea of that being on the album, to me, just continues to open up the world of possibility of just that this band can be whatever the three of these guys are feeling at the moment. And so I really, really hope that this one sticks around, because I'm very excited to hear, how it develops and just what it means for the rest of what they're working with. And to me, it means they're kind of doing whatever they want, and I hope they keep at it. Now, this next song, to me, is possibly the most worked out sounding new material they presented. And it also was, in my memory, my favorite of the new songs that they presented. This is called Read the Room.
I remember this one in detail.
This is called Read the Room.
Now, I do have this song on my phone, so I have listened to this one quite a few times.
Okay. So, what I like about this is melodically... Sorry, I'll let the listeners hear Tom sing for a sec before I talk. So what I really like about this song is that the bass is letting us know what the chords are, right? Because Johnny's doing this very delay-driven, kind of spacey riff. And it's pretty like, I'm calling it now. In fact, even though none of my predictions about this show were correct, this is going to be one of the first singles from the next album. Because to me, this is one that you can really sink your teeth into as a new listener. But it's still got that weirdness. The riff is super trippy. And then the vocal and bass melody at the end of each measure goes an extra time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Oh, I love this change right there. I just want to get there first because I'm sure that you might have this, but the very Pink Floyd and what Jonny Greenwood is doing. This transition doesn't feel very Pink Floyd, but you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It feels like something, not exactly, but somewhere between Animals and The Wall, which they're, you know what I'm saying? Like stylistically, I guess.
Sure.
While being wholly original. I brought up 10,000 times that I love Omar Rodriguez Lopez of the Mars Volta and his own solo work. The riff reminds me of that a bit.
Oh, I hear that.
I mean, just in what he's doing. And it also has a Metallica vibe in the way Metallica might open a song. And then it builds into something with a lot more aggression and totally different than this. And I'm purely talking about what Johnny's doing on the guitar. You know, music is not about comparing it, but I think that to other music, I think that's a way, though, certainly that I understand new music to determine if it's new or not. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at it rather than being like, oh, you're just comparing it, you know, I don't know what I'm trying to say, except for that I think stuff that's different that reminds you of stuff is kind of finding a way into newness. And this is, not only is it new music because it's music I hadn't heard before, stylistically, it's adventurous. And it's not the most adventurous thing the Smile have ever made. This is so killer. That's where I'll kind of leave it for now on my comparisons and sounds like.
The bulk of the song to me sounds a little bit throwbacky. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a Smile arrangement of an OK Computer era song to me. And I mean that in the best possible way.
I love that.
I think that...
Yeah.
Sorry, listeners, but that just like...
No, that was good.
That to me like sounds like Tom writing a weird Tom York rock song. And I like hearing them throw in something that is a little more direct, even though it has all these weird section changes and everything like that. I'm not giving it short shrift, but I like that this one is not afraid to have kind of a hooky melody.
We're getting into my favorite part of the entire show.
And now we're into like
right
math rock time here.
Okay, yeah, this is Hail to the Thief, but with Tom Skinner, and this isn't, but this is that type of music with Tom Skinner distinctly on the drums. What he's doing to drive the aggression of this, where it could be so much spacier, is fucking outstanding. And Johnny too. But this song is persisting, even though it's been section changey and had some melodic changes. It's not giving up on its aggression and its speed. And even though it started out with Tom Skinner providing a little bit of what felt like a Zeppelin-y breakdown, now we're driving faster, but I just love what they're doing so much right here. And I think this was the peak of the show for Jonny Greenwood for me. This whole section.
And that pretty seamlessly bled into this riff.
If I'm not mistaken, this section goes on for quite a while and seems to stay pretty instrumental, correct?
I think so.
But this is like the Cars.
Yeah, and that's also Jonny Greenwood is playing this like palm muted rhythm part, and Tom is doing this like heavy fuzz riff on the bass. It's just cool. They're rocking out, and it really built to that in a much more. I'll just say this song sounds like it's maybe been kicking around longer because they built to that very comfortably. without you kind of noticing as in as much of a jarring way of like, oh, okay, we're switching sections. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, no notes. That's so wonderfully put, especially in comparison to the songs above it. If I'm not mistaken, and I don't really know why I need to say this, but I think Read the Room does transition into longer jams that, and even if it doesn't, what I think is cool and from my memory of it is that we talked about how it's interesting to kind of watch these guys potentially be in the working stuff out mode with the first, I want to say 3 songs. Read the Room feels a little bit more finalized. I love the way that song, I said, oh, it goes on for a long time. Well, no, it didn't. That was right near the end. But I love the way that song kind of finishes with a Tom Skinner and Tom York and Jonny Greenwood jam. We don't have to have Tom finding. And that was one of the most surprisingly entertaining things about the show for me, was that when those guys were all jamming together, it goes to that point that you've talked about with like Khruangbin, and I've talked about with Rat-a-tat, and some of John Frusciante's solo stuff. Instrumental music has become a part of my taste profile and pantheon, especially while I'm working, than it ever has been before. So that's all.
The next song is called Bending Hectic.
I was studying Johnny's fingers so much during this, what this song starts out as and what it becomes, because it's a lot of, I'll just say, wrong notes being played correctly. A lot of great use of effects pedal as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of starting with this like atmospheric, almost like explosions in the sky type of groove. I mean, this is not a groove. Type of like bed of sound.
Yeah.
And vocally,
what he's doing with that. I love that.
Yeah,
because it weaves right back into Tom being beautiful. It's perfect balance.
He like plays every part of the climb. And this one vocally sounds a little more worked out to me.
And this does feel like I don't want to say a riff, but like a guitar part that Johnny would have in his arsenal. And I'm purely speculative. This is just me imagining when everyone's getting into the studio, to record King of Limbs or Moonshaped Pool, and he's just sitting. Maybe he got there half hour early. He's just sitting on his amp playing this. And then, oh God, the way but you know what I'm saying? It feels like something that you just not have any use for, but would like to play every now and then.
I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just getting lost in the music. This one's
really
cool.
Totally. I love it.
And it's like emotional sounding too.
It's very logical in its sound, even though there is that note that continues on. Kind of like how you were saying the bass dictates the chord changes, and maybe it was Read the Room.
Yeah.
I feel like this one does that with like the beauty of the riff, but then there's that note. And I'm sorry, I feel like you were mid-thought.
No, not at all. This one just giving me like close my eyes and
sure,
like feel your feelings. It's really pretty, because one thing I'll say about these new ones, this is not a criticism, we haven't really had what I would consider to be pretty songs so far. And so again, the same way I love that we get this kind of like aggressive, distorted bass hook on Read the Room, we get this weird psychedelic pop vibe on People on Balconies. All of a sudden now we've got like an atmospheric pretty song, and I'm just Zach, this album could be any fucking thing. And here we go. Now it's gotten less atmospheric, a little more of a groove now. Doesn't this vocally sound more confident to you?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember, I think the lighting was a distinct green during most of that first atmospheric. The lighting at these shows, oh, we should say, Kailani was correct. I thought the lighting was incredible and expertly executed at the show we were at. It did seem to stay in one color mode for that whole section. And even if the song cuts off before it builds into what I think it's going to, or that might even be 2 songs away, I remember this starting at this song, it being kind of a sweet musically. Mm-hmm. And I just love that. And this is what I wanted to say. I love what Tom Skinner was doing during this whole kind of sound. You said it when we were listening to the album, the way he hits his hi-hat and his snare combined for musically something different than what we're accustomed to. And I think he's doing a lot of that here, and like kind of the snare hits, but on the metal part, you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Kind of keeping time with that. And just a brilliant, brilliant drummer.
I think it is okay to say some predictions have come true. Zach's predictions of new material, and then a more specific prediction Zach made that has not come true yet, but will. Dope lighting was achieved, and then another one of Kai's predictions that was made has not come true yet, but will. And I will point that out when it happens. Nicole's predictions, still in development, still a developing story, BPW-wise. My predictions, all false. Just in case anyone's keeping score at home. But Zach, this does build into what you're thinking. And when it happens, we will just let it wash over us.
Please.
But again, still just like really, really digging this pretty atmospheric jam. And then here we go. Johnny
Zach
just let a distorted guitar chord ring out. Getting into some heavy shoegazy sludge here. And
ladies and gentlemen,
loving it.
Pinkerton has just entered the building.
Yeah, the 90s are back for this
The 90s are back at this, and Johnny even made his hair when he banged his head as such. I almost cried because I was like, did I just see the creep for 10 seconds?
Here we go. Johnny comes in with a face melter. Hard to believe this is one guitar player right now. The wall of sound that is happening. Tom Skinner really not afraid to be a rock drummer here either.
Oh,
he's playing big, direct, Bonham-y hits here.
Danny Carey, like
not doing anything too fancy, just playing the song.
I think that is the song. I've been listening to Tom Skinner a lot, both within the Smile and then some of his solo work. I really do. Danny Carey by Name Walker?
I don't.
Tool.
Oh, okay, cool.
So Danny Carey can do a lot of heavy metal stuff. He can do a lot of Bonham-y stuff. His snare is so kind of Abe Cunningham too, a little bit. Mm-hmm. Again, this doesn't. What's that?
Just that like ding sound that definitely.
Yeah, and I just love what you said about not afraid to be a drummer. And like you said, it's incredible that it's one guitar player doing that. I do hear some looping the way he's having that high note ring out on a loop. But this was the moment.
It's just very well executed, and he creates such a cool wall of sound.
And that is so hard to do, listeners, because it is if you're looping something, it's usually a pedal switch to do so. But you have to, first of all, if you get it wrong the first time, you're almost fucked as far as your timing to set a loop. And secondly, I would say kind of the same thing goes for Tom Skinner as what Jonny is doing there, because Tom Skinner starts out, he's kind of wailing on like his Rioters Crash or whatever, but he's just gradually adding more fills, which is what really gives it the Danny Carey kind of feel and vibe to me, who is, I think, one of the greatest drummers on earth. And this was the moment where Tom Skinner and Jonny were in my field of vision of just looking straight at it. And this is not like, I don't want to say this is like the coolest story on earth or whatever, but I described it in our episode with Casey Pegram. I told it to Walker. I was slack-jawed, and I wasn't for comedic effect. In fact, I think Walker was behind me, and I remember Kai just looking up at me and smiling so big, because this was the moment where I was seeing what has become my favorite guitar player and composer on earth going back to his roots in a way, or just giving what I've wanted to see for years, which is them live, but also it didn't quite come through in the way we were listening to it, but his left hand was shredding. He was fucking shredding, and you know what I'm saying? And it was so satisfying, and it was so cool, and it was so different, and I felt like I was in the presence of greatness.
Absolutely. That was not I just got the best quality version I could for the sake of sound. Yeah. That was not the version from our show. I think we got a better and more extended guitar jam at the end of our show than that. He was doing more soloing. And just to put this in context, that's the second song of a 4-song encore. So they close their set with The Smoke and You Will Never Work in Television Again, right? Mm-hmm. So it goes Read the Room, Panavision, The Smoke, You Will Never Work in Television Again. So going out on a huge high. For the encore, they come back out and play Open the Floodgates, very slow, quiet, building a vibe. And then they play that. And, it was just so magical. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, this is what I love about The Smile. I don't think that would be a Radiohead song at this point in their career.
No, absolutely not.
And it just feels like it's like if they want to do a big shoegazy rock song with a Jonny Greenwood face melter, they feel confident or comfortable to do it without it being like, oh, Radiohead is kind of regressing back to like OK Computer or the Bends,
which I wish they would do.
It's cool.
Because the product of that is called Hail to the Thief.
Right. Fair enough. But I think that I think that in a world where Radiohead has more music ahead of them, yes, these dual timelines really might be the best of all worlds,
Absolutely.
Where Radiohead can continue to work at the advanced level that they are in terms of their arrangements, that they can continue to approach music the way that Radiohead has learned to approach their songs, but that there is a place for just like Jonny Greenwood to shred is really exciting. And go ahead.
No, I don't have much to add. I think that's so wonderfully said, and how I said that the product of that is Hail to the Thief. Obviously, I'm kidding, because even since the year 2003, 20 years ago, obviously all members of Radiohead, including Jonny and Tom, if you're a professional musician and you play as much as they do, your musical abilities are going to conceivably increase over time. I don't know really how much better you can be as a musician, regardless how much every single song is like our favorite or not. I think that there are moments on that album that represent the distillation of the skill, just the skill. That's all I'm talking about. And I feel like that breakdown and jam is a callback to that kind of playing that we've not gotten in a long time. But I really, for some reason, am loving my Rivers Cuomo evocation. I don't know who's better. Rivers is actually a amazing guitar player, listeners. It's neither here nor there, but like heavy metal type soloing. for some reason it reminds me of that, and even that like drony wail, and it's been so long since we've had good Weezer music, and it was never this advanced or adventurous per se, but to your shoegazer kind of, those are very 90s evocations. That's more what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But also Rivers does not sound like Eddie Vedder, so like there is a distinction in the melodic nature of what I'm calling upon that I've never heard before or since, and I just love the version we got because it's just fucking fun to watch somebody shred Van Halen style. And I would say his hand and also when it sounds good, and his hands looked that busy, and Jonny hadn't been restrained on the guitar, but even during songs like Thin Thing, The Opposite, because the tapping is so intricate, you really don't get a sense of seeing, and maybe he might be quite challenged physically in what he's doing. You don't get to see somebody like rocking out, banging their head. He does do that, but like this just was like old school rock and roll in a new school Jonny Greenwood way that I loved. Most satisfying moment of the show.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome. And again, like to me, the biggest surprise about the Smile from You Will Never Work in Television Again being the first single to this moment in the encore of the live show is that I just would not have guessed that Tom York and Jonny Greenwood still had any interest in heavy guitar music.
Yes,
and
yeah.
That is such a fun surprise. And it really makes me think that it's more that is no longer the Radiohead sound. And when they play a concert, they play Paranoid Android and shit like that. It's not like they're like pretending that they never did that or they've forsworn it or anything like that.
Doesn't seem to be their interest,
It just doesn't seem to be where their interests lie in terms of composition. And so I'll take it. Now, I will say for the rest of the show, we are now in sequence with how the show went. So the last 3 songs of this concert were Bending Hectic, and then the next 2 that I'm going to play. This one is one that the Smile have been playing since their live debut. It's called Just Eyes and Mouth. So it's very worked out sounding, but this was actually my first time hearing it. I hadn't listened to it on the live streams before. And another Kailani prediction or wish comes true in this one. This is when we got to see Tom dance.
Again, we're in a song that I think is very modal in its composition from Jonny Greenwood. Not to say that he's literally playing the scale note for note up and down, but that is a lot of what he's doing.
Oh, this is
we got that oscillation of the 1 again, Walker, which is really cool.
Good call, by the way. Yeah.
And you said we're in sequence, so the Bending Hectic was right before this, correct?
Yes.
I loved the way, and I apologize, but I loved the way they flow into one another because this is still very guitar. It's not in that breakdown jam, I want to punch my wall and love and anger at the same time. This is more of a flowy, but I love it because we're still really guitar funk.
Yes. And this sounds like, almost new wave to me. I mean, I just really think this band is like genre hopping. It all sounds like Tom and Jonny. It's always going to have a distinction to it, but that is specific to those guys. But I just feel like they're kind of trying a bunch of different styles on, and I fucking love it. And this one to me is very a modern take on kind of a late 80s post-punk new wave dance sound.
I think I love everything you just said, especially about them wanting to try new stuff. But you said like it sounds new, but like through Tom and Jonny, even with everything we've just heard on the Guitar Walker, and I'm including the album, this even sounds different to me than anything I've ever heard Jonny Greenwood, and would not, if I somehow was given a riff from God, I would never say Jonny Greenwood should play that riff. You know what I'm saying? It's just so different. And to me, I love everything you just said. It has a very John Frusciante feel.
I get that.
In both the way he's using it to kind of get louder and not. I don't know if he's actually literally adjusting his volume or if it's in the mixing or what. But Frusciante will do that a lot, and it's very busy.
And the fact that it's a clean tone.
Yeah, and how it's almost climbing the scale, not note for note, but it doesn't sound like there's a lot of alterations. That is like a Frusciante thing to do in like the song Snow, for instance, to where it can sound like a bass. And yeah, I don't know. I love, this is so fucking cool. I love and other people have pointed out that Reckoner has like a Frusciante feel to it, which I tend to agree with, but this is obviously way busier than that. And I just love, regardless if it's coming from something as direct as that or not, Jonny Greenwood may look 31, but he is 51, and I love that he and Tom are taking in new influences and styles, whether they're from Western groups or artists like what I just mentioned, or from nothing to do with that, and through learning how to play a non-Western instrument translated back to a guitar. It's so fucking cool.
Well, I hear maybe a little bit of that kind of African funk influence that was present on Amok.
Yeah.
Like this sounds a little bit, I hear a little bit of the Fela Kuti influence here too.
Big time.
I only would say that to me this doesn't sound like one that I can't imagine as a Radiohead song. I could hear this. I could hear a King of Limbs arrangement of this.
For sure.
But I definitely prefer this approach of live instrumentation in a 3-piece. And arrangement-wise, Tom is playing the synth. He's playing the keys on this one, and Johnny's playing guitar. And man, I hope we get an album version of that.
Me too.
Because I do think that it's a great live song, but it's really one that I would be curious to hear what some of the overdub choices would be vocally and instrumentally on that. But what a song. I love it. So this is where another hyper-specific Zach prediction came true. You listeners, you may have heard him say, I have a feeling we'll get something that's been kicking around as a Tom song. This is Feeling Pulled Apart by Horses, something that we have played on this show that existed as a precursor to Reckoner. Tom was messing around with this groove that the song ends up sounding absolutely nothing like Reckoner, but he was playing around with ideas that became this song and ideas that ended up becoming Reckoner on In Rainbows. And he took this set of ideas and turned it into a single collaboration with Nigel Godrich. But now it is a live staple of the Smile set, possibly one that there will be a full band or studio album version of on a future Smile record. This was the last song of the night of a 4-song encore. Let's check it out.
Very different.
Speaking of Tool.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is some heavy shit.
Very Tool, though. Which, by the way, did you get a chance to listen to their new album?
I didn't know they had one.
2019. It's excellent.
Oh, yeah, I remember when that came out. I checked it out when it came out. Tool is one of those things where I appreciate it. It's not really something that I throw on. I love Maynard James Keenan's voice. This may be sacrilege, maybe it's not. This might be a hot take or a very common take. I actually kind of prefer A Perfect Circle because...
I don't know. I mean, that's,
because arrangement-wise, and I just find, I'm sure it's not. Well, I'm not sure. I might be wrong about this, but Tool gets really, really samey for me.
First of all,
fast.
You are.
But I love his vocals, and I can appreciate the complexity of what they're doing musically. It just kind of gets a little drony for me.
To me, this is a Volta section change. I just want to say.
Yeah. This is very Latin sounding.
Yes, exactly.
I
know. I love the way it goes back. And I love the way Tom Skinner lets us know how we're going back.
This is metal, man. This is some evil sounding like metal shit.
Real quickly on Tool, I want to just tie that off. I agree that their singles can kind of sound samey and boring, which is the great thing about listening to their albums, is I think there is a lot of different stuff to chew on. But you, my friend, are entitled to your opinion, of course, because you're somebody whose taste I respect immensely musically. Back to this song. Yeah, I love what they're doing, and I love that songs evolve over time. It probably doesn't hurt that Flea got to contribute on an iteration of this song to make it.
Were Atoms for Peace?
Yeah, because they played it
too?
during the Yes, they played it during Atoms for Peace when they were touring.
Wow. So this is the third Tom York project for this song to exist in.
And this is what we talked about, Walker. You said it so beautifully during King of Limbs when we listened to the album. Radiohead are able to either change keys or section change without you even knowing it sometimes. Well, I invoked the Mars Volta 2 seconds ago. They are a band that will aggressively change sections in a way that you're like, what the fuck? On purpose. And I love it. Radiohead can do that. This is not Radiohead. The Smile seem to do that in a way that I really enjoy. That it's like, hey, we're not going to bridge everything in like a their way where Tom is literally singing over the key change into the next key. Mm-hmm. This is angular and harsh, and I don't give a fuck if the section change makes sense, and I love that kind of music.
Yeah, it sounds intentionally jarring.
Yes, I love it.
It works. It works. And again, I think with those first two songs we listened to on this episode, we're not saying it doesn't work, but it just sounds a little abrupt in a way that is uncharacteristic of John and Tom, and makes me think that we're gonna hear those transitions develop.
This was also a part I was slack-jawed for Johnny. Johnny, as Paul McCartney once said about the greatest guitar player on earth, Jimi Hendrix. As Paul McCartney once said about Jimi Hendrix having seen him live, this fellow knows his way around a guitar. Listeners, I'm so sorry I butchered that. I couldn't remember Jimi Hendrix's name, but I just love that quote so much. It's like, yeah, you're right, Paul. That never a better way to put it. He knows his way around the guitar.
It's pretty good.
And that's what Johnny is showing right here, too.
I gotta say, when you brought up the Mars Volta just now, I became very convicted in the spirit because I remembered that you have sent me 2 Mars Volta songs you really want me to listen to multiple times, and I still have not.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, if you need to Matthew 18 me on pod.
Oh, this is killer. And this one is worked out.
It sounds really worked out. It's really confident. I mean, I think every new thing they played in the encore, you know, I'm sure they don't want to close on something that is still being messed with. Mm-hmm. And it feels like these last 3 new songs are really confidently arranged and put at the end for a reason.
Yeah.
Because they were immediately, I just remember being able to like lock in to all 3 of those songs and kind of get what I was listening to. And those early ones were all like for a minute or even 2 minutes into like maybe a 5-minute song. I was just trying to just figure out what I was hearing. And that was cool too. But it wasn't immediately apparent.
I have a feeling that all of those will not be on whatever their next record is. But I hope that, let's see, we listened to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 songs.
You have a feeling all of them will not be, or not all of them will be?
Not all of them will be on the next album.
Agree.
We listened to 8 songs. Right. I hope that all 8 are on an album, but I bet 6 out of 8 of them will be because of the quality of what we were hearing. Mm-hmm. The only reason why I can feel that is because from a guitar perspective, they could maybe be heard as repetitive. You know what I'm saying? Even though the guitar playing is fantastic, but I that's the only reason kind of why I say that. But hey, time will tell. So that's all right.
Time will tell, but I agree with that prediction. I don't think that everything they played is going to end up on the next record. But I think it's also worth remembering that all of those were 5 or 6 minute songs live, but they could be 3-minute songs on an album cut.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, that's a big part of the Tom York approach is we're going to play this one thing over and over and over again. And that's a big part of where Nigel comes in, is he goes, okay, this bit, fuck the rest. That is a quote
he goes,
from Tom.
Look at my hair.
Look at the front of it. Don't look at the back of it. Now, Zach,
wait, what was the Nigel quote? I'm sorry.
I think it was Tom talking about his process of making the eraser with Nigel, and he described sending him, I'd send him a 7-minute loop or jam, and he would listen to it, pick 30 seconds and go, this bit, fuck the rest.
Oh, I love that.
And, and that's how they build some great songs. Now, Zach, obviously we're experiencing a lot of enthusiasm now about everything. I think it's really fun to kind of hear this stuff and be back in the room. Because as you said, it's a concert. It's kind of, it all becomes a blur. You had a great time. You heard a lot of cool stuff, but it's really cool to be taken back. Would you like to hear what the energy among the four of us was just right after the show on the ride home?
Please. I'm so excited.
Okay. So this is everybody talking about what they just experienced, what predictions came true, etc. Here we go.
All right, Walker, any thoughts?
It was a great show. They played almost the entirety of their debut album and about half new stuff, and the reviews seem to be in, well, I won't speak for anybody else. For me, the reviews are in that it was a great show from start to finish, for everybody involved, and none of my predictions were right.
Yeah, they didn't open with, they opened with track 1 off the album.
They opened with track 1, and then they closed with You Will Never Work in Television Again. Or so we thought, because those motherfuckers came back out and played another 4 songs.
Cheeky buggers.
But yeah, no, it was an incredible show, and I am really excited to dissect it. Just want to say how lucky Kai and Nicole are that they're getting an in-person episode of Idio Talk in this car. Greenwood and his versatility, and how much of like the workhorse of this band he is. Tom's vocals sounded amazing. And I've even come to begrudgingly accept and even celebrate Tom. That's my recap.
Man, that was a solid recap. Nicole?
Yes, well, I thought it was a wonderful show. I had so much fun, but my business is...
Yeah, that's enough pleasure.
My bit of business is the black people count.
Okay.
I counted 6 black people, and that's including one I did not see, but who Walker saw with one of his friends. I'm willing to concede that there was up to 20 more black people that I did not get to see. There was a lot of areas of the place that I was not in, but I will say it was not good. Low, and definitely less than Phoebe Bridgers.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's because
that surprises
Smile
me
doesn't
then
want
and now.
black people there. I think
Hopefully
they just haven't
we might have to
done
reconsider our fanship if
enough outreach, is what I think.
Right.
In the community.
Yeah.
And I mean, is it too much to put on you that this is the beginning of that changing? Because
yes, it is too much to put on me. I cannot do the labor on this.
I have one follow-up question, Nicole. Is one of the 6, did you stop in the restroom, use the bathroom, maybe fix your hair in the mirror? There we go, number 6. Or was this 6?
I saw none in the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
When I was in the bathroom, and there were many, many women in the bathroom.
Okay.
I saw one black woman. No, I didn't see any white men with their black girlfriends.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see that either.
Was disappointing. I guess they know better.
Which one? Which party knows better?
The black women.
Okay.
To show up.
Yeah. All right. 6 is good, as Batman would say in 1989's Batman. I don't really have much to add. I mean, I think my recap would be similar
that didn't
to
get a big
Walker's.
response,
Appreciation for old JG.
No, that was really clever from me, though.
And my God, does he look fit and young for a 50-year-old man. Nicole, please.
Oh, here we go. I open the floodgates.
I'd like to hear it.
I just got your joke.
Oh, yes. I was asking if you were the
Yes, there was one in the mirror.
Okay, yeah. Kailani, would you like to add anything?
Well, we got a little bit of Tom's dancing.
Yes. Oh,
we sure did.
We did.
You had the most predictions correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, your third eye was
Ever the sweet husband.
I don't know. But we did.
No, sorry. I'm sorry.
We did get to see some Tom dancing. Loved that. Got to see a ton of Johnny flipping his hair, which I didn't.
Here we go, listeners. The beginning of the end.
Going in, but as soon as it started, I was like, I did need to.
I didn't think about wanting to.
How old is Johnny now?
50.
He's 50.
He looks incredible.
When he flips his hair, it invokes the feelings I had about boy bands in
you can hear like the lust in her voice.
In seventh grade.
Where did it all start?
You can hear me like wanting to affirm her extra because I could tell I'm losing the love of my life a little bit.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to like.
It was awesome. It was something
act
about
more
him
confident
doing
than you
with
feel.
The prowess of the musicianship.
Yes.
And I don't anticipate being on your full recap episode, so I just want to say a major highlight of the show for me was Johnny playing an entire song on his guitar with a violin bow. That
was a bass.
Bass
guitar.
A bass guitar.
Totally.
A fight propagates, I remember.
Well, he did the violin bow and bass.
But it's like, are you really mad about her saying the wrong instrument, or you maybe heard about something else?
Oh yeah, he completely destroyed it.
That's awesome.
So I'll break this fucker, yeah? Well...
Why am I so bad at impersonating British people?
That's for short people.
Yeah,
I think being bad at impersonating British people is a real staple of Idiotalk, a Radiohead podcast.
Tom is pretty awesome.
They all wore baggy pants.
Yeah, I loved how
Chandler
comfy they were.
From Friends.
Chandler wore pants like that.
Okay.
Walker, you were saying?
No, they were all very comfortable. They all like really like they didn't just stand there and play the songs.
No.
Like I feel like there was a great deal of energy coming from the stage, and I would not have thrown any shade if they'd had additional musicians to flesh the songs out. But it was a 3-piece, occasionally with the opener Richard Stillwell.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What was
Stillman.
Thank you, Nicole.
Right?
Yes, you're right. It was Richard Stillman. It was a 3-piece except for a few songs.
Those
they had
very
him
Samsonite kind of moment.
What I think was a baritone sax. Yeah, it was pretty big and low. I think we get it, right? We're recapping things we already know.
Yeah.
So, okay, a couple things I just want to make sure to comment on right away. One is you were surprised that there was a lower stats on the BPW at the Smile than Phoebe Bridgers. Phoebe Bridgers has a very young and very queer audience. Yeah. So I think it just lends itself to there was a much bigger spectrum in terms of age, race, and gender.
That makes sense.
By every metric possible. Still a lot of white folks, but I just think that the second band of two of the guys from Radiohead, there was a lot of Walker and Zach at that show.
Yes, but I think the Smile is more inviting to... I don't think Radiohead is white people music, and I don't like that kind of talk because even it's fine to joke about it, of course, but Radiohead is internationally famous. The reason why I don't like it with Radiohead is because I think it shows my own ignorance because they are internationally famous in many, many countries in both hemispheres of the globe. But I think the Smile, I think you could call, all that being said, I think you could call Radiohead sad white guy music. That being said, the Smile, I just think has more to offer within its sounds. And I am not ascribing types of music to types of people, but I do think that in the same way as other bands maybe can be more. Do you get what I'm trying to get at? We don't have to continue that point.
No, of course not. I will say that, I think that we live in a time where everybody has access to everything. And so we're all checking out each other's stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
But I also never feel like less of an individual and more of an archetype than when I am at concerts, because inevitably when I go to concerts, it's like, oh, okay, there's 4 types of guy and I'm number 3, and so, yeah. Obviously, when you go to a Radiohead concert in Japan, you're not going to be like, oh, wow, only white people listen to this band. But, they drew a certain demographic in San Francisco, and it looked a lot like me and Zach. But, and that's that. Anyway, so I did want to just comment on why I thought there was a little more diversity at Phoebe Bridgers. The other thing that I think has to be pointed out here is while I agree with everything we're saying in the car about how great the show was and everything like that, there is a deafening silence on one thing, which is none of us are talking about how mad Tom York was.
I was so
the whole
processing
time.
My trauma.
Exactly, dude. It makes me feel like Daddy just yelled at us in front of everybody at the park, and now we're just talking about how fun hide and seek was, and it won't be until it really made me realize that it wasn't until later. And we've mentioned this before, but why don't you tell the folks what I'm talking about what happened at the show?
It was pretty early. It was pretty early on in the set. Where okay, let me just start off by saying, after playing 1 or 2 songs, maybe even just 1 song, Tom York used his what I like to call paranoid android voice. So going way back to Glastonbury 1998 or whatever, he goes, "This song is called Paranoid Android," and it sounds kind of like a robot. I felt like he did that with San Francisco a little bit. He was like, "Hello, San Francisco," or something. He did a funny voice.
He was being silly. Yeah,
and I loved it, and I rejoiced. Like I've never done so before, just at that little bit. But
he had us in the palm of his hand.
He did. I would have killed it, Walker, if he had asked me to.
Yeah. Thank God that this guy hasn't started a cult, because I know 2 people who would be saying that it's not a cult.
Anyways, I would say 2 songs later, 10 minutes later, he said, "Where is this fucking draft coming from? This is the coldest fucking place we've ever played. Never playing this fucking place again."
Yes. And Johnny, and it was a vibe shift in the room. Like, it was like, oh, he's not being funny. He's mad.
Yeah, it was sort of in a non-racist way, the Michael Richards moment, where you realize 3 minutes into that 6 minutes video, oh, maybe he was trying a bit, but whatever this is, it's not funny.
Yeah. The bit stopped being a bit a while ago, and now we are watching a meltdown. And this was not a meltdown.
No.
But he was pissed.
It was not a joke, though.
No.
Anyways.
And it was the opposite of a meltdown. It was a freeze out because you.
What am I missing, though? Was there follow-up on this, Walker?
No, I think you're right, but I think the 2 things you just mentioned were mentioned a couple songs apart. So it's like he complained about the draft, and it was a little bit of like, oh, sorry, nothing like we can do about it. Yeah, there was a nervous titter. And then he said, "We're never playing this place again." And that was like a little bit like, oh,
but preempted with how cold it was again to let you know why they will never be playing it again.
Yes. And then he said at least one more time how cold it was. And look, like, I can't sit here and tell Tom York what it feels like to be in his body. If he said it was cold, then he felt cold. It was December. And I kind of got to call bullshit on this to the extent of like, I don't understand. Like, this is a venue with like 15,000 people or some shit. Like, there's a lot of people in here. You want them to turn
sold
on
out
fucking heat lamps or something? I don't understand what the big deal is. Jonny Greenwood was wearing a t-shirt the whole time, and he didn't complain at all. Now, granted, he didn't say anything else either.
But Johnny started with the zip-up hoodie, and as noted by All in Company, particularly the love of my life, he did take that off, was doing those hair flips, and I don't even want to, revisit all of that, guys. Again, it's been, it's been
I know, Zach. How do you feel listening to yourself get cucked in real time on that recording.
Just to drop the joke for a minute, it's so sweet. It's so sweet. I love it. And I just think the way she said that, like, hair flips in high school, because Jonny Greenwood reminds me of somebody that Walker and I actually know very well in looks, who I think Patrick.
Oh, that's funny. Sure.
And they don't look identical, but like the way they wear their hair and stuff. So it just really like gave me this glimpse into, I don't know. It's really adorable. But yes, Jonny, anyways, back to the point. Jonny and Tom Skinner, who I don't think ever took on, like added or took off any additional layers, because playing the drums.
But was also in short sleeves.
Yes, absolutely. A really cool hipster button up that was like not, looked like he could have gotten at the Goodwill that day. Very normcore kind of vibe. But yeah, Tom stayed in his leather jacket and boots and, jeans or whatever. I do hope that they come back. There are other venues in San Francisco. From a non-festival perspective, I think that would kind of be the place to go.
Here's the silver lining. Better than I do. I think that it means that next time, because the Bay Area is a huge market for a band like this. Mm-hmm. Like, it's considered like
a huge market, period.
Right, exactly. But it's considered a what do you call it? Like, it's considered like a
temple
market. Like, exactly. Like, it when you are a major touring act, you play the Bay Area. You play the Bay Area,
New York, Chicago, LA.
Right. And in California, you play the Bay Area and LA. And then if you do a tour of smaller markets, you might play, Sacramento, or something like that. In any case, they'll come back to the Bay Area. I think the silver lining here is next time we might be getting to see them in Oakland at the Fox Theater, which is a venue I prefer.
You think they do the Fox?
I think so. It's smaller than the Bill Graham, but I think it's big enough. I mean, Tom York has played there solo before in 2017.
And that's kind of the vibe they're going for, too, is like, we can play these smaller venues.
Yeah, they're not doing Chase Center, They're not an arena band, but like, right. Yeah, they could play the Fox, and I would say if they played the Fox, they'd probably play 2 nights.
And we would go both nights.
That would be fucking awesome. But again, Tom, love you, but I think that there's a little bit of a like self-centeredness happening here, where if you keep saying you're cold and you're with 20,000 other people and none of them are having the problem, at a certain point you might need to like just self-reflexively go like, maybe it's me, is all I'm saying. And that the power of music really kept it from being an uncomfortable experience, because clearly none of us were ready to deal with the fact that Daddy yelled at us a bunch about how cold it was. But
we did enjoy dinner, damn it.
Exactly. It kind of feels like in the middle of dinner, like bringing up the thing that you're mad at everybody about. And it's kind of like, maybe do that after we've had a chance to digest, because now we just have to sit in it. I think telling us very early in the show you're playing for us that you'd rather not be doing it and won't be doing it again is not like the best tone setter. Other than that, no criticisms. But I did think it was funny that not only do we not talk about it, but we say how comfortable they all seemed when one of the 3 members was letting us know how uncomfortable he was the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit of denial in the car, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm having trouble even talking about it on mic right now. Like, some part of me is like, but it was so funny.
Right. Well, it was cold. Zach's like running up there, like throwing a blanket around him.
Last little thing I want to say is, one thing I don't know, I'm proud of, I've loved about doing this show is Walker and I know each other quite well. We know each other's individual politics. We know individual struggles we've gone through, not through and through, we're different individuals. That is to say, I think that as different as we are, there have been certain vibes or whatever to where listeners might have some sort of grasp on not necessarily our politics, but the things we don't like that fall into a political realm. I will say, I think my man Tom Skinner, whom Walker has been skeptical of since the beginning, whether it's because he has a beautiful head of hair, because of whatever, this, that, or the other thing. I think I really know why Walker truly fell in love that night. Walker, you want to let the audience know why?
I think you're referring to the fact that draped over his drum set, Tom Skinner had, I guess, a cloth. A piece of cloth that said solidarity with striking workers. And I did think that was very cool. And that is
nice.
And that, yes, I was going to say, you're saying it like this is
no, but I could just tell. I was like, this is going to get, I know that if this can't get Walker, then it's, then
nothing can. Yes, for sure. I love that as a statement and as an ethic and,
yes.
Yeah, and it
was just cool. It was very Rage Against the Machine, or something like that. To have like just a big fucking like unite, or I don't know. It was rad, but it was a statement.
Because I think that like if I have a one overarching political belief, it is solidarity with the working class and labor as a movement, and so and you know what, musicians at their level, they're well paid, I'm sure, but that's what they are, and so that's who they should be aligning themselves with. And I love that Tom Skinner made a point to do that, and
I thought it was really cool.
That had me from the beginning. But God, just a huge appreciation for how talented that dude is. Seeing it live, it was a great experience. I can't wait to do it again. I'll be there when the Smile comes and tours again, even if Tom, and maybe they'll come in the summer and he can complain about how hot it is the whole time. But all I know is fuck you, take my money. Any closing thoughts from you, Zach?
Not at all. No, man. I loved going through these tracks. Listeners, I hope this was enjoyable. And I am so excited to record and to present to our listeners our next episode.
Make sure to follow us on the podcast platform of your choosing. If you're not already, we have new people every week that are listening to the newest episode as their first episode. If that's you, so glad to have you aboard. We'll see you next week on a Friday. I have been Walker Glenn.
I'm Zach Glenn.
Bye. Idiotalk is a Glenn Brothers production. Get in touch with us at idiotalk.podcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at idiotalk.podcast. Thanks for listening to